Your business is vulnerable even if you think you're not a target. If you're a small business, you might think, why would anybody care about my business? I'm not well known enough. I'm not a target. I'm not going to be attacked. Well, this is actually wrong. And the reason is because most of these attacks are initiated by automated scripts and bots that run on the internet. They're scanning ports, they're looking for vulnerabilities, and they don't necessarily care about your business. They're just looking for anything, if you think about a metaphorical door that is open. When you have an online web presence, you have information that's available 24/7. Your web page is your front-facing entrance. Often you can have back-end connections through databases and other things that can contain customer data, employee data, and a number of other things that could be vulnerable. The way you need to think about this now is you're building your online reputation and your presence. So you have a social media created, you have your own website that you are hosting, you have all of your internal infrastructure, and that might vary based on the size of your business. If it's a small business, you might just have a few company devices that are laptops, and that could be a potential exploit. The most practical and common way of getting attacked or exploited from a basic level is still through weak username and password combinations. By far, that's still what it is. So if you're going to work on anything, you have to have this right. You have to have a policy in place. Your employees have to follow it. You must use strong passwords, and you must not reuse passwords, especially for important accounts, because if one password is compromised, then that can be compromised across multiple accounts. The way this happens is that you can have things, for example, like brute force attacks that just try common attack series. And then once they find out the password combination that works with a specific username, then they now save that and it's known that this is a working combination. So if you can find that username anywhere else, the logic is that you should try that password and it could be vulnerable. So if you're using a username and a password combination across multiple devices or areas, then that's a major issue. Now, with the advent of multi-factor authentication, this really is also helping to reduce that as an attack surface. You might not have that in all scenarios. So for multi-factor authentication, when you think SMS text messages, or if you're using something like Google authentication, that's very helpful. If you are on, let's say, a laptop, a lot of them don't have that by default. And unless you're in a more of a secured environment, you're not going to be using multi-factor for that. So you still need to understand it and be careful about the reuse of passwords and authentications. Now, from your web page standpoint, the way you need to think about it, again, is this is your interface with the world. And if you are doing something, especially in a sensitive area around, let's say you're a doctor or you're a lawyer or attorney, you actually could be more of a target for whatever reason, especially if you're involved in something that's maybe more political or more sensitive, then you might have a reason that your business is a target. So you have to think through that on, what might an attacker be trying to get or gain. It could be a variety of things. It could be monetary oriented. So we see a lot of crypto scams, and they're not really crypto scams at their heart. What they are is they're compromising a device, and they're usually encrypting or locking data on it. And they will have a ransomware attack, which says that if you send Bitcoin or whatever type of cryptocurrency, then we'll unlock that device. It may or may not actually happen. You might not actually get that device unlocked if you send and respond to that. That's more financial motivated. And again, a lot of those are just random. They're sending out requests and attempts to lots of different devices in hopes that they will compromise something. In a lot of cases, they don't even know what's being compromised. They just look for the ransom coming in. And then again, they may or may not even send you the key to unlock your devices. So that's one example. You need to really think about it too. If you have a web page that has a payment system involved, that you need to use a reputable payment system. Now, those vendors will, for example, like PayPal is well known, they have their own security standards. So they're typically going to be using best practices. So you do have some level of trust when you're integrating there. The integration point at the way that you plug in that payment method needs to be done properly, because that could also be a weak point. But if you're using some custom payment method that you've created or hired somebody to make, that's definitely a concern that needs to be secured through best practices. Also, if you have a form that customers are filling in data, you need to be aware again of you're probably using a plugin for that or some third-party vendor to track those plugins. The security practices that that those vendors use is really important to understand, because that is where the actual customer data is coming through. It might be something harmless where it's a survey or something that you're running, but other times it could be more critical information. For example, if you're a law firm or if you're a doctor's office, you have to be careful about HIPAA compliance. So if they're putting their name in, they're putting their address, their email, and if they're filling out any patient information about, diagnosis or whatever, you need to make sure that system is HIPAA compliant. If you're a smaller business, a doctor's office, something like that, you are going to want to use some third-party system almost certainly. So there's a lot of solutions that are out there, but the key is to remember that even if you are a smaller business, you do need to realize that you could be a target for any variety of motivating factors, whether it be financial gain, reputational damage, some personal grudge, or it's something random. So there's a lot of areas or reasons that this can become problematic for small and medium businesses. An activity that I recommend businesses go through is they think through what are their assets, so especially online assets that are connected, so your web pages, you're gonna have back-end infrastructure, so you should work with your tech team about database integration, and then your other assets are your laptops or your desktop devices. Take the example again, if you're in the medical field, anything that is connected to a network internally, especially anything that has internet access, is a potential device that could be compromised. So if you have webcams, for example, that could be exploited. So if you're in a sensitive environment, you have to be aware of that you're using a vendor that has security updates, and often these sit around for many years and then they're out of date. So that's something that you should consider, for example. But these are just a few examples, but if you run through a scenario where you gather the assets that can be vulnerable, and you want to think from a high level about what is the most likely target and then what are the biggest compromised assets. So once you create this, then you have a holistic view of where you need to start and target. Where ShadowScan, the company that I'm working on, we're really focused on websites and the front-facing asset. We want to make this process as easy as possible for you. It's going to be a point and click, so you just go to the website, you enter your website domain, and you verify that you own it. Then an automatic scan is provided, and with our integration with AI, we provide a set of actionable steps that's very simple and easy to follow. So if you're interested in this, if you're either a business owner or if you're a tech person, go ahead and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions or interesting insights about what I've discussed here.